Well guys, here we are. We finally have a chance to drive the new 2021 Ford Mustang Mach-E. This one I have today is loaned to me very courteously by Gene Buttman Ford in Ypsilanti, Michigan. It's a premium all-wheel drive. MSRP starts just under $50,000. This one has the extended 88 kilowatt hour battery pack, which adds about $5,000 to things. So all said and done, this is a $56,000 Mach-E. Let's walk you around this thing, show you what it looks like inside and out. I'll give you guys some thoughts on what it's been like to live with these last few days. And at the end of the video, we'll do a sound system test this Bang & Olufsen sound system. Sounds pretty good. Underneath here, this parcel shelf, we've got some storage for your charging accessories, tire inflation kit, all sorts of good things. You can raise or lower that to your heart's desire. This is kind of a fastback crossover, so you don't have as much height throughout the rear of the vehicle than you would in some other crossovers, but the seats fold down quite nicely, and all said and done, there's a pretty good amount of space in here. When I first got into this car, I was actually really surprised at the quality of the interior and the materials. It's designed really well. I love these kind of cloth speaker surrounds. The leather feels very premium. It's a very nice place to be in this new Mach-E. The reason I'm surprised is Ford, I think, has been slacking a little bit on their interior materials and their quality lately, and this Mach-E is a big step in the right direction. I'm very impressed. You have a USB-C and Type-A charger right down there. Opening and closing these doors is all very cool. They tend to kick back on you a little bit more than I would like. The door stops aren't as strong as many other vehicles. Let's hop in the front seat and show you guys what this Mach-E looks like. You get some fun noises at startup. Let's talk about this screen. So pretty much all of your vehicle controls are located in here, except for cruise control, volume, your window switches, transmission selector, all that stuff. You've got a few different drive modes. You've got your cameras, your 360 view. These are a lot of menus to go through, and these menus aren't very full of points, so you have to click a lot or tap a lot to get to where you want to go. It's quick, but it's just delayed enough that it's slightly frustrating to use. These touchscreens, if we're going to be putting all of our vehicle settings into them, they need to be as fast as our smartphones, and they need to be really intelligently organized and put together. The user interface on this is pretty good, but I think Ford could just make some improvements on both speed and the organization of everything here. For example, to turn on your heated seats, you have to go in and press what level you want instead of maybe just pressing the button once, twice, or three times. Heated steering wheel controls nice and down there, easy to find. You've got your driving settings, one pedal driving, works awesome. We'll test that in a minute. Auto ambient lighting, we're not going to see that in the daytime. And this also has the propulsion sound, which we can turn on and off. Otherwise, everything in the cabin of this Mach-E looks pretty darn good. This panoramic sunroof is quite nice. We've got a sunglass holder. This slides. It even has a graphic that shows you that it slides. How wonderful. The horn is loud and abrasive. Very cool. Sounds good. You have two storage cubbies down here, one below and one above. They're both lined with a nice grippy rubber material, so stuff doesn't rattle around. And that also goes to say that this cabin is very quiet on the road. Anyway, enough talking. Let's take this thing for a drive and see what it's like on the street. So I'll put this into reverse. You get a little bit of a beeping noise, just warning people around you that you're backing up. Of course, we're in a snowy parking lot, so we have to test the all-wheel drive winter capability. Don't expect to be too impressed. These tires are not very good in the snow, and the Mach-E doesn't let you get too sideways with traction control on. You can turn traction off. There isn't just a button. Here we go, traction control. Let's turn that off, see what happens. It's still pretty invasive. And we'll turn traction back on there. So this is a pretty good opportunity to test ride quality. We've got a slightly bumpy road coming up here. The ride quality in the Mach-E is very impressive. This thing is pushing almost 5,000 pounds. It's really heavy. But it hides that weight well, and it rides down the road very nicely. There's not a lot of intrusion over bumps. It's very quiet. It's very rattle-free. Of course, this only has 180 miles on it. But on first impressions, this rides and drives very nice. I think it's a little bit more comfortable than the Tesla Model Y. Pretty bumpy road, and the Mach-E isn't phased. Let's see what acceleration's like out of a dig here. It's pretty quick. The 0 to 60 is very fast in this. On highway speeds, that acceleration, that sense of speed falls off quite a bit. But this is quick enough for anybody's needs. I really like the one-pedal driving in this Mach-E. It just feels fantastic. It's a good amount of brake regen. I really don't need to touch the brake pedal in this car unless if I, don't plan my stop quick enough or something happens immediately in front of me. I would say 90% of my stops, or maybe even more, are just letting off that accelerator pedal. This is full regen, and it does a really nice job bringing you down from speed. Let's turn off the propulsion sound. It's a bit strange in an electric car, imitating the sound of an engine. It's interesting. After driving a lot of electric vehicles these last couple of years, they all kind of feel the same. There are subtle differences like the technology and the user interfaces and, the look and feel of them. But for the most part, they're all pretty similar. And Ford, I think, has achieved a nice middle ground with this Mach-E in that it's just futuristic enough. It just has enough modern features and accents. This big touchscreen, Tesla-like touchscreen for one, but it still drives and feels like a normal car. You can get into this and pretty much know how to operate everything immediately. There aren't a lot of hidden features. Everything is pretty obviously laid out. I'm really impressed with the handling on this car. Around a corner, it really is very well poised. Incredibly well balanced, not a lot of understeer. Let's do a start here. Let's put it into unbridled mode and hit it. It's pretty quick. Not a lot of understeer. On throttle, it rotates beautifully. And then once you're on the highway, there's not a lot of cabin intrusion. It's very quiet. It feels good. Really, my only complaint with this Mach-E with regards to the dynamics and the driving experience is the brake pedal is just a little bit touchy and sensitive. But if you're using one-pedal driving, you don't really need to touch it that often. There's a beautiful ride handling balance to this Mach-E. It feels very athletic. It really hides that 5,000 pounds well. Even on today's slightly wet and low grip pavement, it does a really nice job giving me a lot of confidence around these entrance ramps. Stability and traction control are pretty invasive, but that's pretty much standard for every electric vehicle these days. When you don't have gears, you have to limit wheel speed somehow. So getting on the highway, I've spent a lot of time in this car using the lane keeping assist and the adaptive cruise in this Mach-E. It's a fantastic system. It's just about as good as Tesla's without maybe some of the bugs. It does a really good job keeping you centered in the lane, and does a pretty impressive job reading the lines even on snowy roads that we've had today. You mostly have to keep your hands on the wheel, but if you need to take your hands off for a few seconds, it will last about 15 or 20 seconds. Again, a really nice driving assist system. It does a great job in daily use scenarios. It blends speed differentials really well. I'm very, very impressed with what Ford has been able to do with the adaptive cruise and the steering assist. There we go. This entire stop, that was all regen. Beautiful. What do you think, SRT8 versus Mach-E? That'd be a good one. It's a fun car to drive. It's kind of interesting planning out your braking zones and your deceleration to just kind of utilize as much of that regen as you can. And when you're hustling this thing around, it drives great. It really does have this kind of active chassis that's willing to be chucked around and tossed about. It's not necessarily Mustang-like. I'd say it's a little bit more agile than some Mustangs. All right, guys, well, let's stop and test out this Bang & Olufsen sound system. This is the premium audio. We'll go into Apple CarPlay, select our music. It sounds great, very impressive, no complaints there. Very in line with anything in the $50,000 price point. Bang & Olufsen always does a nice job with their sound systems, and this Mach-E delivers. While we're here near the parking structure, let's go in and see what this thing looks like at night with some of the ambient lighting that Ford has integrated into this Mach-E. And how can we sum things up? Well, this is just kind of a first impressions drive. I haven't done a ton of miles. I really lived with this very much. Charging experience has been mixed. One EVgo charger I went to didn't work at all. The 350 kilowatt Electrify America chargers were really only putting out about 45 to 55 kilowatts. Same with a 150 kilowatt charger. But I think that's partially due to the cold. Not sure if you guys can see the ambient lighting, but it looks pretty good. It changes with your drive mode. So if you go in here, you put it into unbridled, it'll turn to red. Whisper will turn back to kind of a bluish purple. And you can always customize all that stuff too. Anyway, back to charging. I think if you can charge on a 240 plug at home and keep this thing topped up on a daily basis with 270 miles of range or so, you'll be in pretty good shape. If this is your only car and you're going to be using it for road trips or long distance travel, I think right now with the Electrify America network, you're going to be a little bit disappointed, and charging is going to be a slow, stressful, and mildly frustrating experience. So, we really need this alternate network, everything basically besides what Tesla offers, to be good for the rest of these EVs to be, I think, viable to the majority of the population. This Mach-E is a fantastic car from Ford. They've done a really good job designing it, developing it, engineering it. It drives awesome. I wish you could have just a little bit more fun with it in the snow and kick it a little bit more sideways, but I think for most drivers who aren't going to be getting the GT, this is perfectly sufficient, at least from a performance standpoint. It is fun, it does deliver the thrills, and it does it in a controlled and safe manner. But really, I think its biggest weakness is just the software and the charging network. There's a long way to go with that, and I think we'll get there eventually, but at least Ford has produced a very nice vehicle to get us started. Give you guys a little 0 to 60 there. Let's hit one more entrance ramp just for fun. See how it does. I just love the handling of this thing. It settles into a corner beautifully and just rotates incredibly well for a crossover. Kind of reminds me of the Acura MDX we had last week. Very impressive handling. As a second car / daily driver, if you have the at home or at work charging capability, this is a pretty solid option. So again, just upon first impressions, I haven't connected the app with this car, the Ford charging app, but just from what I can see, what's lacking is the charging station suggestions. It's telling me about a lot of private charging stations. Doesn't say whether they're available or not. Definitely not as easy to find charging solutions on the go as it would be in a Tesla, for example, where the infrastructure is just all figured out. I assume this is something that'll improve with time, but for now, it's a little bit difficult to find charging when you're on the go. If you're on a road trip, you can plan this stuff out pretty easily. And on a daily basis, I think you'd be in good shape if you can charge to pretty much a full battery every day in the garage or in the driveway. But otherwise, it might be a little bit frustrating. All right, guys. Well, that's everything on the Ford Mach-E. Pretty nice electric car. Ford's done a really good job developing this. I'm very impressed with how nice it drives and how nice it feels. This feels and drives like a $50,000, $60,000 car should. It's not too rattly, it's not clunky, the leather feels really good, the interior materials are very premium. I think that's probably one of the most impressive things about this Mach-E is just the way it feels and the way it drives. So, well done, Ford. High marks on initial impressions. We'll be getting some more time in one of these in a couple months, and we'll be bringing you guys some more videos there. Stay tuned on the Winding Road Magazine YouTube channel and on Daily Motor for some more videos on this Mach-E in the coming weeks. Until then, thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.